I'm going to share a testimony with you today about something that happened in my life about a month ago. And I want to share this because I've had so many people ask in the last month. They've noticed something different. I've had OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, all my life. I can't remember a time when I didn't have it. But I've always been able to hide it pretty well, at least I thought I could. I mean, people saw only what I allowed them to see. An example of that would be working in the gym. I've been doing this 35 years, so people who were around me a long time would say you're OCD because I keep the equipment in a straight line, or I pick everything up perfectly. I want everything nice, neat, clean, and organized at all times. That's not OCD, people. That's just someone who wants things neat. I won't ever apologize for that, and I'll never change from that, because I think everybody should be that way. I can't stand when things are dirty and disorganized and just out of place. I think that if everything wasn't more in order, it'd be a lot easier place to live in. But what I want to talk to you about, though, is my OCD. What I was diagnosed with several years ago, and something I've always battled. I'm a counter. Now, there's several different types of obsessive compulsive disorders, germaphobe, and that's one that people recognize the most. But with mine, you can somewhat hide it from people seeing, but you can't hide the agony in your mind. As a counter, I've always counted everything, and my numbers were 4, 7, and 11, which means I used to be what I call a counter tapper. Not only did I count, but I had to tap it. So I look back at Marcia when me and her met. We've been married 29 years now. When we met, our first date, we didn't leave her yard from her driveway for 15 minutes simply because I had to touch everything in the car. Tap, 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 tap as I counted. And she always kids and says, hey, I could tolerate it back then because he was a decent looking guy. 29 years later, it's not as easy to tolerate. But what I didn't share with her, and I didn't share with so many other people, is what I was hiding. And that was a compulsiveness to count as my anxiety grew. And I could still always show it. I've always missed work through the years, but I could manage it because I didn't miss but 3 or 4 days a month. Sometimes more, but very seldom more. And I always had migraine cluster headaches. Well, August 22nd, 2017, I had a miraculous healing. I haven't had a migraine or cluster since, but I continued to stay sick. And I literally, at that point, I went through all this stuff with a surgery that from an infection of a dog bite, and then DVT, and several months later, pulmonary embolism, bilateral, and it's just think, man, you'd have told me that 6 months earlier. I said, that never happened to me. I'm in the fitness business. It can't happen to me, but it did. And so my life changed. I guess my stress got more. And when my headaches delivered, I thought everything would straighten up because I thought the medicine I was taking from the headaches was what was causing all this. But I continued to get sick, so I went from doctor to doctor. During this time, my counting was getting worse and worse and worse. But I wasn't sharing it with anybody, including my wife. I just didn't want her to know it. It's a mental thing. It's a whole lot easier to understand headaches or cancer, stuff like that, physically than it is mental. When you have a mental condition, schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever it may be, OCD, people don't understand that. They sometimes think you're a wacko. And so sharing that with me was a very prideful thing to do, to share it with anybody. My family could only see what I allowed them to see. What I'm getting at, though, is the last 7 years, I haven't worked more than 2 weeks out of a month, and it wasn't consecutive. It was like I'm there a day, out 3, and there 2 days, out 4. It was terrible. But what I was letting them think was I was physically sick all the time with a stomach bug. And Marcia would always say, you can't have a stomach bug every other week. You can't. What they didn't know is if I was sick one day and I missed a work on Monday, I pretty well wasn't going to be back for the rest of the week because my counting was in a frenzy. And again, I couldn't share it with anybody. I tried to share it with my pastor. When I met with him, I couldn't get the words to come out, so I didn't. And I didn't ever meet back to go over it. I just said some other things that were bugging me. And so it was just hard. I couldn't tell anybody. So as this plagued me and got worse and worse, I just kept thinking, I'm ready to give up. And I'm a Christian. And that's what's so hard. I've already seen God do miraculous things with my headaches being gone. I saw him on August 22nd when I'd fallen the day before. I had a huge knot on my head when I prayed with this lady, and the headaches went away. The knot also disappeared. I mean, just during the time of the prayer, my knot, I thought, wow. But and I hate to say that I doubted, but I think about the fact that I did, because I thought, but I didn't even ever turn this OCD over to God. I was too prideful to even turn it over to Him. And so what I'm getting at is this, where I couldn't share it, I finally opened up to Marcia. And I gave her an example, and I want to give you this example of what I was dealing with. If you visualize like this landscape here, and you think this flat ground here, and you think that there's a house in here, it's our house, and we walk out the door and there's just a rock, a pretty good sized rock, but I can step over it. I could step over that obstacle, but what people didn't see, including my wife and my children, was that boulder that the rock was connected to under the ground, which was my OCD. Well, the issue I was having is and this is going to be a crazy illustration, I understand this, and I can only share it now because I'm delivered from it. But I go in what I call cycles. I go in a weekly, well actually I go in a daily, a weekly, a month, and a yearly cycle. And if I don't connect just right in these cycles, in my OCD, my counting goes into just hyperdrive. And so an example of that was my weekly cycles. To me, in my mind, if I didn't show up to work on a Monday, say I had a stomach bug on Sunday. Well, on Monday, even if I had the stomach bug and I stayed home that day, if I felt good Monday night, I'm still not going to be at work. I'm going to be home counting. When my wife's at work, I'm going to be home counting, and I'm going to be counting hours upon hours. An example of that is I had if in my living room, there's a frame of a bar that overlooks the kitchen. I'd sit there literally sometimes 12, 13 hours and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 around the frame. Never get up. That's why people kept commenting, you're losing weight, you're losing weight. I'd use the excuse it's a stomach bug or whatever. That's basically what I'm saying. I was living a lie. And so what I realized that I'm going to have to tell Marcia, because I can't live this lie anymore. So when I told her, I mean, she was just kind of in shock, because all this time we thought was, and I was saying physical, knowing every time we go to a doctor and having tests, and they'd come back and say, you're the healthiest sick guy we've ever met. I finally realized my mind was killing me, and I had to share it, because if I didn't, I was going to go crazy. And in this particular time, last month, I knew the 1st of July, and this is how a person with OCD or something, their mind can work. I knew that I was going into what I call a quadruple cycle. You visualize circle for a second. I want you to think about a round circle with a slit in it. And it's revolving around, and I'm on a hill or a cliff, and I'm fixing to try to dive into that circle. And if I don't dive perfectly into that slit, then I miss that cycle. So I know this, again, sounds kind of wild, but if I missed, example, I'm sick on I love all these seagulls, but if I didn't jump into that cycle right, I'm pretty well out. And if I try to come back to work, say on a Wednesday or Thursday, I'm just trying to get the strength, I'd always pull up in the parking lot and call Martha, hey, I'm sick again. I'm having to go home. What it was is sick here. I couldn't get the counting to stop to get out of my truck. And so again, I was going into a situation, to me it was DEFCON 3. I mean, it was fixing to be over for me, because I was going, it was hard enough to jump into a cycle, or I call it a circle, on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but I was going to what I call a quadruple cycle in July, and I knew I couldn't make that jump. I couldn't make that leap, and I told her I'm a time traveler. Now, again, don't think of YouTube videos, actual time traveler, but think about this. To me, I was a time traveler, because if I didn't jump into that cycle just right, I missed that time. I missed that opportunity, so I was down for another week, hoping to jump into it. But the way my cycle worked on a weekly basis, and Marcia would always say, well, you have a miraculous healing on Friday a lot of times. And I did if I jumped into that cycle right, meaning my first cycle was on the 1st of a work week, not Sunday, but the 1st of work week, which is Monday morning. If I jumped into that cycle just right, I'd have a great week. If I didn't, again, I missed. But Friday at 5 was what I call another weekend cycle. If I could jump into that cycle right, man, the weekend go great. If I didn't jump into it right, then my weekend be terrible too. You get it? Monthly and yearly be the same way. If I didn't jump into a yearly cycle, I knew the year was going to be. And I missed a lot of yearly cycles the last 7.5 years, because it went into hyperdrive when I got sick. And so with this particular Monday coming up in July, I was frantic. That's why I had to share it with her, because I knew I couldn't make that jump because, and again, this is where it gets crazy, but think about a blood moon or a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse. These are very rare things. And so if you think about this stuff, it's very rare because it doesn't happen often. Well, this particular thing was going to be very rare to me because not only, remember my numbers are 4, 7, 11. My primary number was 4. I count things 4. And it doesn't mean I count it one time. I count it multiple. Remember I was talking about that frame, that window? I may count it for hours upon hour before it actually registers in my mind that, hey, it's all there. Or I may pull a drawer out so many times. I used to at work, I'd go in the office and hide because I couldn't quit counting. I'd open the drawer 1,000 times counting, and finally it would click, I could come out or whatever. But this particular time, the problem I was having is that on this cycle here, I caught a quadruple cycle because not only was the first on a Monday, but the Monday was the first of the work week. So I got the first of the work week, which is Monday. I got the first of the month. It's the 7th month. You get where I'm going here? It was a cycle I knew, because you visualize this circle again. Getting into a cycle or that circle on a Monday morning was hard enough, but I had to jump into 4 at one time. It wasn't going to happen. And I knew I was going to have a nervous breakdown, and I'm praying to God this whole time, but I'm not saying, God, take this OCD away from me. Take it away from me. So finally, what I did is we got closer to that. I just get more and more frantic. I was missing more and more work. I couldn't communicate with my wife. And so I went up to the gym on the 30th, the second to the last day of the month. And it was 5 in the morning. I went there and I just laid on my face on that floor in the aerobics room. We weren't open on that side. So I just prayed up to God, intervene any way you choose to, God. I'd sure like miraculous healing, but any way you choose to. Nothing happened right then. I was counting on the way home. But I got home, and when I got home, the wild thing about it, when I got home, it just stormed that morning. So I was going to walk my dog out in the field. I went out there. I had my rain boots on. I'm sinking in the sand out there. Normally, I ain't lying. I'd be upset. But instead, I think about this song. The old hymn called "The Solid Rock." On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. And I started singing that song because that was a song that when I got saved in 1998, that song was the one that just convicted me. And then I surrendered to the ministry in 2001. That song was also playing. It convicted me. So here I am thinking, God, I know you can do this. I know you can do this. But I already convinced myself the next morning when we were at church that I was going to go up to the front and talk to our pastor and just pour it out, no matter what happened. So we got to church, and I'm sitting there, and I just feel something. I'm not sure what I feel, but I feel something. And so our worship leader, Mark Hall, starts the worship service. He sings a song, and then the next song is "The Solid Rock." Now, I don't remember us ever singing this song because we normally will sing either contemporary Christian songs or we'll sing old hymn songs from a book called The Heavenly Highway. It doesn't have that particular song in it. It's a newer hymn. But we'll sing this song. I know I'm circling this beach here because I don't want to walk any further and be wore out on the way home. But anyway, so we're singing this song, and my hair on my arm stands up. And it's like this, here I am planning on going up to the front and pouring this out to our pastor for prayer, and my arm hair starts standing up, and it's like the OCD melted away, meaning I haven't counted since then. This last month, I've been at work the whole month. I've exercised. I started eating better. I've just got a vision to everything, and it's something that God can only do. I've not known life without OCD. I have not known life. Every time I think about going to another doctor, I mean, I had one Christian counselor years ago that I really could open up. The only person ever in my life, and he passed away, and I thought, who do I open up to about this? Who? I can't even open up to my own wife about it. And so to have this all off of me, and I want you to visualize this beach, this ocean here. My OCD consumed 3/4 of my life. It always has, meaning, let's just say I can only see 1/4 of it. And now all of a sudden I see all of it. And that's how I'm seeing things now, because I'm not counting. It's almost like a blind person that all of a sudden can see, or a person who's never seen color can see color. That's where I'm at right now. And yet it's hard to explain. That's why trying to explain this in a matter of 2 minutes is not possible. What's possible? The fact that I know that God delivered me from it. So now I know that miraculously, not only did He heal me from headaches on August 22nd, 2017, but now I look at the last day of the month of June when I knew I was going to fall off the cliff, and God pulled me up and rescued me in a way that, I mean, the headaches were awesome, but OCD life without it. And I'm making this video too because I know so many people that I've met with OCD that we've talked. I know people with schizophrenia. I know people with bipolar. I know people that, and each doctor said, you know, it's a chemical imbalance, or it's so-and-so, or it's your subconscious mind doing, or it's a trauma. Hey, I had a trauma when I was a kid. It was a trauma that it was hard to get over, and it's probably exactly what caused this whole thing to start. Where I'm thinking about the abuse that happened when I was a small child, and I'm thinking this small child, and even Mr. Ingram, who was my counselor a long time ago, said, you're not a small child anymore, Cody. You're a grown man. That small child doesn't exist anymore. But it wasn't enough. It didn't get me through it. I still had the OCD. When the anxiety got higher, the obsessiveness got higher, the counting got worse. And when you're thinking about someone who will count and not eat and just count for hours upon hours, it was driving me mad. It got to the point that the counting, when I'm trying to talk to somebody, I couldn't even think straight because I could hear the counting in my mind. I couldn't have focus on anything. That's no longer. Coming on this vacation this year, no one will understand completely that my mind is clear. And what it lets me know in business and family is how much I missed out. But I'm not going to look at it like that way. I don't know exactly when OCD started in my life, but I know when it stopped. I know when God delivered me from it. And I'm going to live life to the fullest. I'm going to glorify my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who delivered me from this OCD. So if you're watching this video and you have something like that, don't give up. If God can deliver you, He can deliver you. He delivered me. And I couldn't be any more excited about what He's going to do in my life from here on out.